Yunmen said, everyone has light. When you look at it, you don't see it. It's dark and dim. What is everyone's light? He himself answered on their behalf, the kitchen pantry and the main gate. He also said, a good thing isn't as good as no thing. This is Blue Cliff Record, case 86. And I brought this up yesterday and spoke a bit. And now maybe we'll clarify a little further this matter. It's fundamentally, this is fundamentally our life. Fundamentally, if I say it in this way, the Dharma life that we are. The Dharma that we are. The Dharma that is this universe. Everyone has light. Of course, it's not something that we hear. If we think we know what that is, we've already gone far off. And yet, Yunmen, Master Umon is the Sino-Japanese way of pronouncing the Chinese Yunmen, then steps in for us and says, kitchen, pantry, main gate. Then steps further in, a good thing isn't as good as nothing. So yesterday I brought up this matter and talked about it in, you might say, at some point bringing up intrinsic and experiential. You should know intrinsic is not different than experiential. Experiential is not different than intrinsic. If I say it, it's two sides of the same expression of the Dharma that we are. The Dharma that is the teaching of the Buddha, that is the clarification of this very moment. Of course, talking about these matters is only talking about these matters. In the absorption in the treasury of light by Ko-Nejo, who was Dogen's student and later the second successor from Dogen, Kigen Tetsugikai Ko-Nejo. So Ko-Nejo brings up this matter and then further brings up a monk asking Yunmen, the light silently shines throughout countless worlds. Before he finished posing his question, Yunmen quickly asked back, are these not the words of a famous poet? The monk said, they are. Yunmen said, you are trapped in words. We need to be careful, though I'm speaking here. We get trapped in words. Light doesn't get trapped in words, and yet we get trapped in words and miss this very light that we are. This light that is the Dharma of this life that we are. Yunmen goes on, saying in a slight another time, the flames of fire expound the teaching of the Buddha of all times. The Buddhas of all times stand and listen. What is this? What is this? Is fundamentally what we do, what we clarify with our very life, clarifying this, and yet we get entangled. We become trapped in words, as Yunmen says, and miss this very life. Even if the words are a good thing is not as good as no thing. Not as good as no thing. What is this light? What is this light that is who and what we are? What is this light who and what we are, shining through the countless worlds, countless life? What is this countless life that we are? What is this light that we can't be other than? Rather than everyone has light, each of us is light, but when we look for it, when we look at it, we don't see it. It's dark and dim. So what is this light that you are? What is the light that is the whole of the Buddha's awakening? That is, I and all beings of the great earth together attain the way, says the Buddha. I and all beings of the great earth attain. You, I, and everyone here is all beings of the great earth. What is this light that we miss, this awakening? It's not a light that's in the eye or outside in an environment. It's not a matter of knowing or not knowing, knowing or seeing, becoming more purified or less. And yet each of us, it's up to us in living this light to clarify this light, investigate it, so to speak, in our practice, as our practice, as our life. If it's something separate, then we miss our life. And that's the whole of what creates us trouble. All that creates us trouble. There's a Sutra, Identity of Relative and Absolute, where Shitao, who's the author, says, right within light there's darkness, but don't try to see the darkness. Within darkness there's light, but don't look for that light. Light, darkness, we could use those words, but then we miss. In the words we get trapped and miss the functioning. We miss the experience, and if I use that word, being just this moment. Being just this moment is what our practice calls for from us. Being just this moment for us requires us to notice how and where we refuse when that arises. Refuses, whether refusing because we can't say anything or because, like this monk in Koen Eju's quote, Aren't these the words of? And he says, yes, they are. There we already missed. We get trapped by the words. We get trapped by the words of our life, and we get trapped by the words that we add on and we take for granted are the way to function. Being just this moment is forgetting the words, forgetting the self, says Dogen Zenji, is to be awakened by the myriad lights, myriad moments, myriad things, myriad events, myriad life that is our life. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be awakened by the 10,000 dharmas, by the many lights appearing, which can't appear except in as our life. And yet, despite the fact that it's intrinsically so, it's useless for us. It's useless because of what and when we do something with it that makes it into trouble. Makes it into trouble for us and for others, which is what our practice calls for from us. To how do we take good care of it? How do we take good care of what appears? When we look for it as something other than our life, then we miss all people, all of us, each of us as light. It's not something that so-called is evident in any way that we imagine. It's the most ordinary thing. Naturally are this light. It's not something added on. It's our light that can see and taste the light. Our practice is not to get something extra, but to be naturally this life that we are. Whole person. And it's the whole person of everyone that we encounter. It's not something special that we have. It's not something that we have. The light is this very person. And yet, unless we live it, it's useless. Useless because it's not so for us. So we don't realize it, and we don't realize it in terms of all the people we encounter. What is their light? See, that's why. And what is this light? What is this light? And even Yunmen's assembly, practitioners, before they could answer, had no answer. Then Yunmen answers for them. But we have to answer for ourselves. We don't have any use with Yunmen's answer. His answer is the very light. What is this that he calls kitchen? What is this? Other ways of saying it. Are these Yunmen? Are these some things outside? Is there a special place he is that has that? What is it that everyone has? And yet, even something is extra when we call it that. So Yunmen brings this up. The ancestors after Yunmen bring it up in order to further clarify. Why? Because it supports us. If we can truly chew it up and make it our own life, which it is. Not just chew it up, but make it our own life so that we can live it, not because we remember something, not because it's a good thing, but because it is who we are. Then we don't need a good thing. Then a good thing isn't as good as nothing. Having nothing, how do we come forth in the world? If we become caught up in our words or thoughts, we miss. And yet it's fine to use words and thoughts. Otherwise I should have just sat up here and shut up. And yet if I get used by the words, and if you get used by the words, and we get used by the words, then we even get used by the light, and we have ideas. And yet, fundamentally, all beings are the wisdom and perfection of Buddha, of the awakened life. Being just this moment, we can and must testify to this. Testify how? By our living. Can and must, and yet we bump into all sorts of kitchen pantries and gates, and we don't see them, we don't appreciate them, much less other people, much less all sorts of dreams that we aren't willing to see as what they are. So that's why we practice together, so that we can see the light when we bump into it. How do you bump into light and yet we manage? How do we bump into our own light, yet we manage? So, though I say intrinsic and experiential are nonsense, sometimes they're useful nonsense. And useful nonsense is nothing other than this. Though it's good, as Yunmen says, a good thing isn't as good as no thing. But if it becomes something like the monk asking Yunmen about these words, and Yunmen says, aren't those the words of a famous poet? Aren't those the words of Yunmen? Aren't those the words of Buddha? Aren't those the words of... And as soon as we... Yes, they are. We're already trapped in words. Experiencing, if I use that kind of word, is the most intimate, and you can't miss. Each of us can't miss this experiencing light that is our life. We never miss it, and yet we need to do our work so that we can taste the light, we can hear the light, we can see the light. Most of all, we can be the light that we are. Then the whole universe shines brightly. Then you are the Buddha that shines throughout the universe. You are the Bodhisattva that lights up the world. You are the Bodhisattva that relieves suffering of all beings you encounter, whether so-called yourself or so-called others. Thank you.